little bit of background is that Paul is writing to the Philippians, and this text particularly focuses on the dissension or the quarreling that was going on amongst them as each person vied to be better than the other. And this is a text that in one of my classes in seminary, we dwelled on for an entire semester. So every time we had class, we read through it 3 times and then got with a partner and talked about it. And I thought, why are we doing this every time we meet as a class? But when I realized the impact that made on me, because every time we discussed it, every time I heard it, something different jumped out at me. And sometimes it depended on the kind of day I was having or what was going on in the world around me. But sometimes I think they were just words that maybe deep within my soul I needed to hear. So my question for you is, what do you hear when we hear this reading from Paul? One of the first things that jumps out at me is the phrase, be of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. Now, every person is going to hear that different, and sometimes people take that sentence as a call to conformity. But Paul is not saying that we all need to be exactly the same. I mean, God created each of us uniquely different, perfectly imperfect, simultaneously saint and sinner. No one else can be exactly who you are. I hear that phrase and I think, rather than conformity, that it is a call to collectively live together within the parameters of Christian love. Because when we are all loving, then our actions will follow suit. And in order to do this, the following phrase really hits home for me. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility regard others as better than yourself. Humility can be hard. It's hard to be wrong. It's hard to acknowledge that maybe someone else is right, that someone else's idea is better or their way will work better than what you were thinking. But we go on to read in the text about the humility of Jesus. Jesus, who never considered himself equal to God. It says, but he emptied himself. He was born in human likeness. Jesus was born as a baby, a vulnerable, weak human being. And it says, being found in human form, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Do you think that Jesus could have said that night in the garden at Gethsemane that, God, I can't do this? He asked God to take the cup from him, but yet he says, but let your will be done. He humbled himself, went against what he wanted, because he knew that he had to do this for humanity. He put humanity above him. And that's a hard lesson. And Paul goes on to write, to not only obey God and to listen to these things that Paul is saying, but that we need to recognize that God is at work in all of us. He says, God is at work in you, enabling you both to will and to work for his good pleasure. God continues to work in us. God came to us in Jesus, and after Jesus died, sent the Holy Spirit. And there are times that we feel abandoned by God. There are times when we are so angry, when we just want to turn our back on everything. But Paul reminds us that God is at work in us each and every day. And when we acknowledge that, it's a little bit easier to humble ourselves and to live within the parameters of Christian love.